This is Natalie Van Sistine, voice of Yor Forger and Spy Family, and you're watching Spoiler Force.
All right, so this is episode 151 of Spoiler Force Podcast. My name is Ricky. Thank you for tuning in. I can't believe I almost stumbled there, but yes, it is 151 episodes. Today's guest, I have the voice of Yor Forger from Spy Family. She's also the Fox Demon in Chainsaw Man. Also in the anime, the maid I requested is weird. I believe that's what it's called. I could be wrong. I'm probably misworded it, but she's also Miorine from Gundam, the Witch from Mercury, which you actually got casted as that like less than a month ago, and so I saw
Mhm.
that on Twitter, and so when I guess initially when I emailed you, it was before that announcement, and then I guess when that came out, I figured your schedule was going to be quite busy by this time.
Yeah, it really has picked up quite a bit the past month or so. I've been running around like a crazy person.
Well, like I said before we started recording, I'm very grateful that you are able to make time to do this. I understand, like, being busy, and then sometimes you can get like sick or something, and schedule conflicts can happen, which is not a big deal to me. But I'm just glad that you were able to squeeze this in and to do this. So, Natalie, just to jump right to the point, man. So, uh,
Yeah.
just for the followers, or the viewers or listeners, how did you get started into just voice acting in general? Because I know you have a lot of credits in not just voice acting, but you also do audio engineering and writing as well.
Yeah. So when I first started out, I genuinely had no aspirations to be a voice actor or an actor. I really thought I was just going to maybe do some community theater. My original plan was to be a piano teacher. I wanted to have, like, a private studio and be a musician and maybe, like, play with the community orchestra. I had a very, very minimal, like, expectations for myself, but I really did enjoy creating. I enjoyed performing. And so, that all changed when within the same year, I started developing symptoms for what would later be a fibromyalgia diagnosis, and then my dad's job relocated to the middle of nowhere, South Carolina. So, I very quickly had kind of all of my avenues for performing and pursuing music kind of immediately just kind of disappeared around me. And I really threw myself into writing. I thought that that was a sign that that was something I'd always enjoyed doing. I was publishing my work on like forums online, and I thought, I'll go ahead and do that. And then I finished 2 manuscripts and kinda was going, "Well, now what? I don't know if they're ready to get published yet. I'm not sure what I'm doing." So in the midst of kind of all that chaos, I was looking for performance options because that's a kind of a different part of your brain than writing, and I stumbled upon some options. I was looking on YouTube and places like that for music collaboration, and someone was looking for a voice actor for an independent animation because I was looking to write music. And, so they were looking for pretty much all of the audio jobs for this animation, and it kinda just clicked, and I went, "Oh." And this was back in the day in, like, 2008, I wanna say, when we were all just recording on our laptops. We didn't buy fancy equipment, we didn't know how
Mhm.
to soundproof anything. We were just like, "Oh, I've got a laptop, and we know how to use Audacity." How hard could it be to be a voice actor? Um and that was really all it was I just tried it out. I was just like, "Oh, okay, let's try this." I tried narrating some of the stuff I'd written just for fun in the past. I was kinda familiar with the basic gist of recording myself, so I sent off an audition. Of course, I didn't book it, but I kind of got the bug from there and just kept looking for different places. I stumbled upon a site that still exists today, which is really cool, called the Voice Acting Club, which has a lot of great resources for getting started, and I started auditioning for everything I possibly could. I just threw myself completely into it and met a lot of friends who I still work with today, thankfully, because they were also getting started around the same time, and we were all just kind of making dumb things together. So I started doing audio drama originally and thought, well, I like to write. And then I realized that I liked editing audio together. And then from there, I was like, well, the whole actor thing will never pan out. That's never going to happen. So if I'm thinking, practically to still be involved in this field in some way, maybe the audio engineering is a good way to do that. So I went and got my degree in that after I finished. I got an associate's in electronic engineering, and then I went to get a full degree, my bachelor's in recording. Excuse me, I'm getting these flipped around. So I got my bachelor's in films, technically with sound for cinema emphasis. I spent a lot of time in the post suite, and then pursued audio engineering, but I kept doing voice acting because over time I was doing more, getting better at it. People were starting to pay me. It became kind of my side hustle. It helped me pay for a lot of school expenses for a while. And then it just kept taking off more and more. And I made the move out to Dallas. Again, still thinking that the audio engineering was going to be the main thing. And maybe I'd get to, kind of sidestep my way into anime a little bit at a time. And now I'm at year 14, and I'm officially a full-time actor who also happens to write and do audio engineering. So it's a little wild how I had absolutely no expectation that this would happen, and I feel very lucky that it worked out.
I love it. I really just love hearing stories like this, because a lot of the voice actors that I speak with, I love just hearing just how they got into where they're at right now. And yours, I gotta say, is probably one of the most unique ones, aside from like Ann Yatko, who went to like school for a science degree and then
Yes.
completely became a voice actor. But like yours, like it just kind of seemed like you weren't even looking that way, and then it just that opportunity just came to you. So I think that's really cool to see that. 'Cause I love when creators do that too. Like just you it's not something you think of, and next thing you know, you have gigs, and then the thing that you pursued initially is not the side hustle, and then your career is acting now, which I respect that a lot, Natalie. I do.
I
Um,
100%. It was something I think I always would have loved to do, but I always kept selling myself short, and I've finally gotten to the point where I'm like, "Well, obviously, I don't know anything anymore, so I'm just along for the ride at this point."
you know, just I mean, just even hearing the quality of your mic and how you speak, I can see like, or I can hear like a lot of the, just the audio engineering part of you. Like it's really cool to kind of just see like how that part of your career, or the opportunities that you took just helped mold you to become a better actor.
Mhm.
And a lot of the actors I do speak with, they always talk about like going into stage plays or musicals, or like something creative, but that's not exactly in acting, but it kind of like just builds a foundation in your acting, or just like what you do right now. So did you play, you said you played music, so was that something that you wanted to do, just like you wanted to be like in an orchestra or something, or just like create music for like like I guess jingles or something like that, or compose your own music?
Yeah, I've been really into movie soundtracks my whole life. The One of the first CDs I ever owned was the soundtrack to Titanic, and I'd never seen the movie, but I absolutely fell in love with James Horner's score for that, and really I had very grand aspirations about writing music like that. So I originally started out trying to write music for some of my favorite books. It wasn't very good, but I did a couple of like suites where I wrote different pieces based on different scenes in the books. I did one for Coraline that Neil Gaiman wrote, and one for something else a friend had written. And honestly, it's still something now that I have learned more about music technology, because back then it was literally me trying to very badly record stuff on a keyboard, um, and, a keyboard that used floppy disks, to give you an idea of the high quality tech I was working with. So one of my goals has been to not be so busy that I can start to pick that up a bit more, because I would really love to still write music and explore that kind of part of my creative brain that hasn't gotten a lot of love. So that's something I'd like to try to do in the next couple of years, is kind of figure that out. Like I learned how to write for pitch percussion, but I never learned how to write for like regular percussion. So I want to like teach myself how to do that, how to write for non-orchestral instruments, because I took an orchestral composition class in college, but I didn't really learn how to write for like guitars and other a lot of newer instruments, and how to use synthesizers, and how to use tools like that to make more modern music. And I love kind of a variety of a mixture of those things to pieces. Like Kevin Penkin's scores on like Made in Abyss is one of my very favorites, and he just seamlessly blends all of those elements together. And so that's something I want to dig into kind of in my free time. I want to do everything is kind of the problem, and I don't have enough time.
Like with music nowadays, especially like for TV shows, I think it's crazy to see how far it's come. Because now, like with
Mhm.
the advancement of technology, like you can do like digital music, or you can use digital versions of like actual sounding instruments and implement it into your soundtrack or whatever you're trying to make. And I think
Mhm.
that's really different now too, because for composers now, sometimes you don't even need like a live instrument. You can literally just download something that can kind of emulate that instrument and kind of just play around with it now. So what are your thoughts on that? Just like how music has changed too.
Oh, yeah, I think that's really cool because, like, originally I was, excuse me, I was of the mind that, okay, if I ever wanted to write my own music, especially and have it sound good, at the time, digital instruments were not the most believable. So I really threw myself into trying to learn as many instruments as possible. So I would there was a really cool program at the local music store where for the first 3 months you could rent any instrument for 3 months for $33, and then it was 33 a month after that. So, I did that with violin, then flute, and then cello, and just sat down and tried to teach myself and learn the basics of those different instruments, which was really helpful for understanding how to at least write for those instruments later. And I was originally hoping like, "Oh, maybe I can get good enough that I can play them all, and then I can like record them all on top of each other eventually, and I can make stuff that sounds really good." And I was never good enough to make anything that sounded that good, but I at least learned a lot of the basics. And then when I picked up cello, I realized that I really like to play the cello. I went and took lessons and studied that more. I eventually was the youngest member of the local community orchestra for a couple of years and really enjoyed that experience. And I was not again, I was not super amazing at cello. Piano was always my primary instrument, and I never quite figured out bowing as confidently as I wanted to, but I had the best time playing with the orchestra because I had to play, like, some really, really cool, pieces with them. But, yeah, so back in the day, like, with digital instruments, again, it was just not far enough along, so I was hoarding instruments. Like, I've got, like, 3 different kinds of recorders. I got this bass recorder, this giant wood bass recorder that someone just gave me because they knew that I liked trying to play weird instruments. I have a harp sitting in my closet still, like a little Celtic harp. Um, I learned the basics of my sister's, accordion. I just tried to get my hands on everything I could and tried to learn it. So it's just totally a different world that I've been tangentially aware of and really wanted to dip my toes in, but I don't know enough to comment on it so far other than I think it's really cool and I really wanna dive in.
That is awesome. As you can see, I only have my guitar back there. So I've only picked up guitar, and like I played a little bit of bass guitar when I went to church when I was like really young, because they were teaching
Mhm,
kids how to play instruments. It was just like a music program that the church offered. But if anything, what music has taught me was just to count beats, and I think
mhm,
that has helped me a lot with when it comes to like just listening to music, or even like when I do my post editing of the podcast and stuff. Like now, I have like an ear for when if I hear something in the background now, or if I even hear myself, like if I speak too fast, or something's off rhythm about myself, like I hear it and it bugs the hell out of me now. But I wish I could play all those kind of instruments. Like you said, you play the accordion, man. That is a big instrument. Like I've always like seen that stuff like on cartoons, but
mhm.
I've never like attempted to play anything like that. I think I tried to play violin, but I couldn't. I was not comfortable with like the positioning of the instrument, like, because you have to hold it around your collarbone or your neck or something like that, right? And then
Mhm.
you have to like
Oh, yeah, that was
play
what
the
I
bow.
I ran into too. I kept grinding my teeth too much when I played the violin, so it was very
Oh,
uncomfortable for me.
yeah.
But fortunately, I had a very in studying the piano, my teachers really, I lucked out that they really had a strong, musical theory kind of theme running underneath everything, so they were constantly teaching me musical theory to the point where when I tried to pick up other instruments, I knew the theory so well around the concepts that it was easy for me to kind of just look at things from that perspective and just use the theory I knew and to apply it. So, like, for the accordion, if you understand, like, the one hand, you're essentially playing like a mini piano keyboard, so I was like, "Cool, I know how to do that." And then it's basically, all the buttons are based around different chords and chord progressions, and every single row is a different chord, and if you know the order that the chords are gonna be in, if you know chord inversions already, you can figure out those buttons pretty quickly to be able to figure out how to play the different chords, and then at that point, it's just getting used to playing the keyboard horizontal. So it's and then also, making sure you're moving it at the right pace so that way you're not running out of air in the bellows, but, it's more, muscle memory than a mental thing for most instruments once you know the theory.
If you want to start your own podcast like Spoiler Force, then sign up with Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout has helped hundreds of thousands of users like me to begin their podcasting journey. With easy to use tools, you can effectively get your podcast into different platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and more. You can view your stats, create audio clips, and even have your own podcasting website. Buzzsprout offers ideas, tips, tricks, and tutorials to help you improve your podcast. Follow the link below, and once you sign up, you'll get a $20 Amazon gift card. This will let Buzzsprout know that I sent you and will also support Spoiler Force Podcast. If you want a simpler way to record both video and audio for your podcast, then sign up with StreamYard. StreamYard is the perfect program to create podcasts, host live streams, and even do video calls. There are many tools that can help you create and design your own personal studio. You can screen share, read live comments, and stream to different destinations like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. You can also download your video and audio once you're done with your recording session. Follow the link below, and once you sign up with the basic or pro plan, you'll earn a $10 credit to use for StreamYard. Happy podcasting.
Well, since we're on this topic of music, there's so many animes out there with great music, and I gotta say, Spy
Mhm.
Family soundtrack was one
It
of my
slaps, it's
favorite.
really good.
Yeah, like one of the tracks that I love was the episode where Lloyd was playing the game with Anya, like he had to go save her from the
The
castle.
castle one, and then they've got that
Yeah,
awesome song in the background. I love that
yes,
one every
I actually
time.
bought that soundtrack on my phone.
Yeah, same. I love whenever that comes in, I'm just like, "Oh, yeah, I feel great. This is a great song."
But how did you get? I guess how did you get that voice, the role of Yor? Because that Spy Family, when it was like being promoted, like a lot of people had hype on it because it was being, I guess Cloverworks and Wit Studio was working on
Mhm.
it, and then like the manga was really popular too. So being on like a hot anime like this, what was like the process like?
So I was already on the talent pool list for Crunchyroll, which is how I got the audition, is it basically went out to everyone who was, in the, local Dallas area talent pool. So if you've worked for Crunchyroll at any point and you were local to Dallas, you got the audition for it pretty much. I originally got on the talent pool because right after I moved to Texas, there was a show called, oh shoot, it was, what was it called? It was, about different girls that were boats. I can look it up really quick. It's one of the, oh, Azure Lane. So
Oh, okay, that's a game, right?
yeah, so Azure Lane is a game, there was an anime adaptation that was casting, and the director apparently was like, "I need every femme person in the local vicinity who can do any kind of accent or, who can be a boat girl." So, there were a lot of boat girls that season, us playing boat girls, and a friend of mine recommended me because she knew that I could do a British accent. And then I got booked for the show, and I was really, really excited because it was my first anime at Funimation. It was Funimation at the time, and I figured I'd be playing a British boat girl, but then I ended up playing one of the villains because the director had heard me, saw my demo and heard me do some villain characters. So I came in and got to play one of the main villains that season, which was really cool. But then for Spy Family, I'd been auditioning, I'd been working at Funimation and Crunchyroll a little bit. For a while, I hadn't really booked anything huge with them. I was working at some other studios, so I had just finished up doing, Moriarty the Patriot actually with another studio that does outsourcing for Crunchyroll, and I was like, "Wow, that's so cool. I finally got, like, a big role in a somewhat popular series," and, I was really excited about that one, and then, Spy Family rolled through, and at that point, I knew it was gonna be a bigger show because I knew, like, people had actually heard of the manga, and I'd seen pictures of the characters before on social media, and that's usually a good indication that if there's hype on the show before it even like, the anime comes out, that's usually a good sign that it's probably gonna be a good one, it's probably gonna be a bigger show. So, I knew that when I got the audition, I wanted to take it super seriously. I wanted to make sure I did a good job with it. So, I, like, dropped everything I was doing, I went into my recording booth space at home, and then I started reading through the lines, and immediately was like, "Okay, I know it says this character of Yor because I took one look at Anya and I'm like, I don't know if I can convincingly play a kid that young. And I want to put all my time and energy towards a character I think I have the best shot at booking. So I just focused on Yor and I knew she was an assassin. So I figured this was going to be very cut and dry, like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith situation where they're very
Right.
sexy, capable people and constantly playing mind games with each other. So that was the attitude I went in and the lens I was applying to reading the description of the character. But then I started reading her lines, which were taken from what would have be eventually be episode 2. And I was like, hang on a second. I don't think that's entirely the full picture what's going on here. I think I'm missing something. And I was like, okay, should I maybe I could Google some stuff. And then it occurred to me that my partner had a copy of the manga in the house and in true ADHD fashion had bought it and then left it on the shelf and never read it. And so I was like, oh cool. I'll go just like read this. I'll go take like 30 minutes and go read the first couple of chapters and see like if I can get an idea of what's going on here. And so I sat down and started reading it and immediately went, "Oh, that's why yours sounds like that. She's a nervous wreck who can do exactly one thing well." And, but I love that about her. I think that was such a cool personality tweak, and that just changed completely how I went back and tried to read her, and I was like, "Okay, she is someone who really has no confidence in herself, especially her ability to be a normal person, and I'm like, "I can relate to that." I was the weird music girl back in high school and middle school, and I was homeschooled for a while, and I remember not feeling like I fit in and having a lot of anxiety around that, so I was like, "Okay, cool. I know exactly what kinda energy to channel into this character." And, then I kinda thought of her assassin persona kinda like what it's like to be an actor, where I might be engulfed in anxiety all the time, but when I get into the booth, I have to pretend to be an assassin or a soldier, and I have to convince people so well that they believe it. And so, for me, that was kind of like that dichotomy for me. I could translate to what she was going through. And so I read the audition. I felt really good about it, and then I sent it, and I sat in the booth for like another 10 minutes and went, "Man, I really like this." Like, I read the manga, I totally fell in love with it just from that little bit, just of research. I meant, "Oh, no. I really like this now, and I'd be sad if I never got to work on this. I hope the director likes what I did, and I know I'm not gonna get this part, but I hope he thinks of me and maybe puts me on a different character so I get to work on this show in some capacity." But, hey, how cool is it? I never thought I'd get the chance to read for something like this, so I'm just gonna be happy about that. And then, a couple days later, the weekend went past, and it was like a Tuesday, and I got a text message from someone at Crunchyroll. That never happens. We usually just get an email from the scheduling coordinator that says, "Hey, this director wants to book you for this show. What's your availability?" So I was like, "What? Why did I get a text message?" So I was like, "Oh shoot, I bet I got a call back or something like that. Shoot, now I gotta like prepare for that. Now I'm gonna have even more anxiety about this." And it turns out they were just calling to be like, "Hey, you did great. The director wants to cast you, but we just want to make sure you'll be available, and you know this is a big deal, right?" And of course, when I finally got back, when I reached out to them, they I was like jumping around my living room. I was holding the phone out, and he's explaining all this to me because I was just so happy.
That is awesome, Natalie. I love yours character because like she is a bit of a I want to say like a bit of an airhead as well because she can't
Mhm.
really read the room sometimes.
No.
And I but like she's so passionate, like even when it comes to like Anya's troubles or when she's trying to be confident or help Lloyd out, like she's
Mhm.
you portray that so well like in her character, like where she she knows what she has to do. It's just going about it. Like how can she do it without like making herself look bad, you know? And so like there's so many good moments, like when she's trying to cook for them, or like when she's trying to play sports and teach Anya how to throw. Like, you know, she has all the right steps, but she can't do it. She can't act on it. So I just love like this character of Yor. And I think one of my favorite moments that you did was when she gets drunk and like she
Yes.
confronts Lloyd about like, you know, is Fiona the one that you want to be with? Because it's okay with me.
I love doing the drunk Yor scenes because I feel like that's the one time, because she is such a genuine person. I feel like she just feels all her feelings very fully, and she just is so genuine and so earnest and means the very best in everything she tries to do, and then when she's drunk, the anxiety that keeps her from not saying all those things out loud is just stripped away. So she's
Right.
either like, "You're my best friend, you take such good care of my man, I love you so much," versus, like, her being like, "Listen, if you don't love me, just tell me." So I love that it still is just her. It's just all of the potential inhibitions are gone, and you're getting just pure, unfiltered her brain, and it's adorable.
I love it. Like I think even one of the scenes where she was, you know, the tennis scene with Fiona, like even she was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I destroyed another ball." You know, like she felt more bad that she couldn't play against Fiona and like not realizing how strong she is. And so I just love like how yours just is oblivious to that. Like she doesn't
Mhm.
like I read this one comment on YouTube where they're like Lloyd and Yor are so crazy to where they're crazy to each other is normal, and
Yes,
normalcy isn't normal to them. So like I love
yes.
that back and forth between her and Lloyd. So like it's just funny seeing like even how Lloyd's like, man, like something's off by her, but oh well, you know, he just goes on about his day.
And I again, I very much relate to that after, again, having been homeschooled and being kind of the weird kid that didn't fit in, where you sometimes you try so hard, you're like, "I think this is normal. I'm just gonna assume this is normal. I'm gonna if no one says anything, I'm just gonna go ahead and go for it." I feel like that's them all the time, and they have no idea.
You know what? I do want to talk about a little bit here, just how you got the role for Miorine and the Witch of Mercury. You know, because that anime, it's already the sub is already done, and
Mhm.
now like now you and the other actors are working on dubbing. I don't know how many episodes are out so far, but you know,
Yeah.
just working on a project like this, like what was going through your mind? It's like Gundam's a you know a classic franchise, and then especially with this new season where the protagonist is female led versus like
Mm.
how it used to always be male led, and what was going through your mind just getting casted for this show?
Yeah, I'm a huge, giant robot fanatic. Shockingly, I have not gotten I've been, like, very intimidated by Gundam and hadn't gotten into Gundam, but I really liked, all of the like, the Trigger, giant robot shows, so I love, Gurren Lagann, Darling in the Franxx is one of my very favorite series. Pacific Rim is, like, unironically my favorite movie, so I love me some giant robots, and so I had seen that this show was coming down the pipeline, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is so good, and it's really cute," and I saw it, and I went, "Yeah, I'm probably gonna be so into that," but until I know what studio is gonna be dubbing it, and this is the other thing too I've found, is that I try to actively avoid watching shows until they are either fully released or cast at least, um because knowing me, I will get very attached to them, like I did with Spy Family when I read the manga, and for me, it's a lot more fun to not get too attached or too into it, so that way, if I don't get cast, it's just really easy for me to then go, and inevitably, there's so many good people who work in the industry, and I'm very lucky to call so many of them friends, so inevitably, the best part of it is that when the cast list does come out, if I'm not in it, I can be like, "Hey, look at all my friends killing it. They do such a good job." And then it's a lot more fun for me to just sit back and watch my friends do their amazing work rather than sit there and go, "Ooh, I wonder if that character's been cast yet. Ooh, I would love to play this character." So I try to like keep myself out of that mindset and just be able to go into things and just totally enjoy it once it's um removed from the potential of it being a job for me, if that makes sense. So I hadn't watched the new series yet, but I knew I was gonna get into it as soon as it, like, became once it was dubbed and everything. So I was really looking forward to watching it, and I didn't know if Crunchyroll was gonna dub it or not. So when the audition came through, I was like, "Oh, no. Oh, shoot. I really wanna be in this." So, I was like, "I just know it's giant robots and it's girls piloting giant robots, so that's just absolutely 100% like my thing." So, I did a little bit of research. Again, I went and watched some clips on YouTube, just kinda got a feel for it. It did help because with Spy Family, um none of the anime like, there was one trailer that was out at the time, and it was only Twilight and Anya in it, so I had no idea what Yor sounded like in the Japanese when I read for her, so I had to totally guess what I thought she would sound like. So at least with, Miorine, I had the ability to go listen to the Japanese performance, and I then because the whole series was out, I got to see different points of her journey and not just kind of the initial episode 1, which sometimes happens when you're doing simuldubs and you've only got 1 episode out and you go, "Well, they're like this in this episode, so that's all we have to go off of for now." So it was kinda nice to have, like, a full arc of stuff to reference from her. And I read for her, I read for Nika, I wanna say is her name, and I read for Prospera, who's, Soletta's mom,
Right.
and I felt like Miorine was my weakest, and I thought she was like an archetype I could do, but I wasn't as confident in it, so it definitely felt like kind of a Hail Mary attempt to record for her, and I was happy with what I sent out, but I was like, "I don't know if they're gonna buy this, if this is gonna work," but I really like this character, and I thought she was really cool, and then I was at a convention in Florida a couple weeks later, and I got an email from the director saying, "Hey, we wanna cast you in this role. We just wanna make sure that you know that the show has lots of really dark, complicated themes, if you're okay with the material before we go ahead." And I just was like, "Yes, yes, 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 absolutely, 1000%. I'm here for it." And then I just stood in the corner of the dealer's room and hyperventilated for
Oh
20
my god. Oh
So,
man.
that was funny. So I was very excited, very nervous, with both, Miorine and Yor the first time I came in to record because, again, I know these are beloved franchises, beloved characters, and for me, like, getting to work on them are absolute dream projects, but then I also know how much they mean to other people, and for me, getting it right, making it sound good and capturing the energy and everything that people love about those characters is very important to me. And, I probably put a lot of pressure on myself, but I do want it to be good and sound good, and I want people to enjoy it.
Well, like I said, I haven't watched the dub yet, but I'm sure that you did a great job. But I can hear your voice playing Soletta's mom too. So that role would have been very unique to hear you play her too, because like her character is pretty like mysterious too. Because mostly the
Mhm.
Gundam characters with the helmet are always like the most mysterious ones,
Oh,
you know.
yeah.
So
Yeah, no, and I thought she was maybe a little more in my wheelhouse, but then I saw that Elizabeth Maxwell got her, and I went, "Oh,
oh yeah,
there's no
she's
I
good
had
too.
no chance. I had no chance. Elizabeth's gonna do so good with that. She's gonna kill it." So that's, like, what and that was fun too for me too, because like, as soon as I got into the booth too, I was like, "Can I be weird and look at your cast list?" And then I was like, "Yes, Alejandro. Yes, Nazi. Yes, Brittany. Everyone's so good. I'm so happy."
With Gundam, like we were talking about music earlier, man, the score for The Witcher
Oh my god.
Mercury is
Yes.
insane. Like I love it. They with the orchestra and even like the choir in the background when
Mhm.
when there's like a peak moment, when there's like the fight scenes and stuff like that. And the
Mhm.
animation overall is so good. I love this show. Like I'm actually doing a review of this in a few weeks too with my cousin, and he's
Oh,
like more
sweet.
he's doing more of a he's more like into it than I am. Like he's been doing deep dives and like he read
Mm.
like the prequel chapter or something like an audio chapter or something like that that's
Yeah.
out with it. And then like he was like, the did you watch the intro? Like who do you think is this? And what's your theories on this? And then like eventually I caught on to like, oh, maybe because I don't want to spoil anything, but just because the ending of this season is what got me hooked. And
Mhm.
so I was like, okay, I can't wait for season 2 now.
I
And I'll
am
leave it at that. I don't want to, anyone who's watching it just dub only. I don't want to say anymore because
oh,
I'd probably end up
100
slipping something.
100%. And I love Spy Family to pieces, and I love getting to do comedy, but, like, melodrama is my, like I love anything that's, like, really hardcore melodrama, so I'm so excited to have a series, like, we're gonna sit with for a long time and get to milk that, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I spoke with Mark Hildreth, who voiced Hero from the Gundam Wing series,
Oh,
and
sure.
Yeah, and he said what he told me was, like, something I never thought of, he was like, "Yeah, Gundam Wing was like a space opera."
Mhm.
And when he said that, it made me really think like, "Oh, man," like, a lot of the Gundam series are kind of related in that way where there's, like, political standpoints and then there's, the morality of all the stuff, like, it's not just the Gundams, it's, like, the
Mhm.
people and the battles that take place, and it just, like, you have the Earth people versus, like, the Mercury people or the space people, so there's a lot of that going on with the
Mhm.
Gundam series. But, before we do end things here, Natalie, I do have a few fan questions here. So
Absolutely.
I'll just go through these really quick with you because I know your time's limited as well. So
Mhm.
the first question I have here is from Pedro Miguel. They ask, have you ever watched this? Have you ever watched the Superhero Squad show?
The Superhero Squad show? No, I'm not familiar with that one. I do love me some good superhero shows though, like, My Hero's pretty great, and, so yeah, I am also just woefully behind in my watch list because the past couple of years, I've been very lucky that I get to do a lot, but it also means I haven't had a lot of free time, so I'm, like, slowly going back and going, "Okay, it's been, like, a blur these past 3 years. What do I need to be watching?"
I understand that. I think it's just amazing to see how much like you've been doing even just recently, like how much work you have set out for you. It's crazy. The second question I have here is from I might mispronounce the name here, but Triask. They ask, "What's your favorite side character?" Like they didn't specify, so I don't know. Maybe like I guess I'll twist the question a little bit. Maybe who's your favorite side character in Spy Family?
In Spy Family, oh man, um, I would shamelessly probably say Frankie. I really love just about every episode or chapter he shows up in. He's so funny. Anthony is so hilarious playing him too. Like his comedy moments are golds. I love those episodes, and he just really adds such a fun uncle, dynamic to the family. I really enjoy Frankie, but I will say, like, Spy Family has a fantastic ensemble. It's like, trying to pick your favorite out of, like, perfect 10s all around, but, personally, I really enjoy Frankie.
Yeah, I like Frankie too because I think one of my favorite moments was when like he yelled at Lloyd. He's like, I'm your partner. I'm not your babysitter. You get to like watch Anya.
Yep, they're great. I love them.
Looks like Trieste asked the second question here as well. They ask, what was your hardest line to record? That's a good one.
Ooh, my hardest line to record. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think. I don't have one that stands out specifically, but I know, uh, a lot of times with Yor in particular, I really love and admire and am f just constantly blown away by the Japanese seiyuu, and so for me, a lot of times she'll do something so funny in the Japanese audio that maybe doesn't always translate directly to what we're doing in the English or it's written differently or something, or she'll just do something that's so goofy and ridiculous, and she has this incredible way of controlling her voice, and, um, having to when she does something that's so funny to me and then having to come in, I do feel like a lot of pressure trying to figure out how to at least match her energy and her intent and the sheer goofiness of some of the things she does. I can be kind of intimidating. I do my very, very best to get as close to it as possible, but I'd say those are some of the hardest, though, is when you hear the Japanese actor do something so hilarious, and then you're like, "Oh, shoot, how do I follow that up? How do I immediately be that funny, like, on a dime?" So, n rather than anything specific, I would say that tends to be kind of the most, like, challenging, kind of, tricky. So that comes to mind. Oh, another one comes to mind too, though, was, again, not like a specific line, but I did record a session, I was in World of Warcraft, and, the session I came in for, I had an ovarian cyst that had ruptured, and I was not in immediate medical danger. They basically were like, "There's nothing you can do other than take painkillers and wait it out." So I was in a lot of pain, but at the same time, I was like, I'm in so much pain and I'm so miserable. I just want to pretend to be an elf for 20 minutes, and I knew I didn't have a ton to do that would be super stressful, so I just dragged myself to that session, and I pre by God, I pretended to be an elf for 20 minutes, and the director was so lovely and understanding because she's like, "Well, tell me what's going on in your life," and I was like, "I don't know if you wanna know," and she's like, "No, no, 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 no. No, this is relevant, like, this is gonna place your mindset." So she, like, coached me through this, and then we had a lovely session, and it was not the most fun to be in that kind of pain, but I look back at that as also a very wonderful experience because she was so wonderful to work with and, made what was otherwise a pretty miserable experience a whole lot better.
That is crazy. I don't even know if I could I would have like back problems from time to time, and to be able to go to work and try to act out while you're in pain. I give you credit for that, Natalie. That's crazy.
I
Um,
mean, I don't know if it's something I'd necessarily recommend doing, but I did it, and, it made me feel better at the time, so, you gauge your individual circumstances.
this last question here is from
Mm.
Space Knight, and they ask, "Do you watch Land of the Illustrious?" I don't know if that's a cartoon or anime, but uh,
I think or I've heard of that one. Land of the Lustrous is, I think it's the premise I read about, and it sounded interesting, so it is on my to watch list, as it kind of sounded like an anime Steven Universe where it's a bunch of gem girls. I don't know the anything else beyond that other than the characters are named and designed after different gems. But I absolutely 100% was like, "Ooh, I'm here for that art style. That looks really cool." So, it is on my to watch list, so hopefully it's up my alley and I enjoy it because I definitely wanna check that one out for sure.
awesome. Well, time is running low here. So, Natalie, I just want to say thank you so much for just even making time to do this. I
Of
hope in the
course,
future
thank
that you
you.
can come back on and like we can have a full session just to talk and geek out together as well. I really just enjoyed this. Thank you so much for doing this.
Sure. My pleasure,
Um,
thank you so much for having me.
and for anyone who wants to follow your work or find you at cons, how can they do that?
Yeah, so, I am on pretty much all any social media platform where I am, I will always be, N Van Sistine, my first initial, last name, all lowercase, no spaces. So typically that's mostly Twitter, Instagram, and once in a blue moon TikTok. I'm not the most in tune with the social medias, but I do try to make an effort to post semi frequently on those platforms. TikTok seems to be more of my craft work though. But people keep telling me to do voice acting videos, so maybe I'll finally get around to that.
Then I'll have all the links in the show notes and stuff as well. But yeah, this is pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. This is episode 151. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Spoiler Force. Again, follow Natalie on all her social media platforms. Yeah, again, Natalie, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate this so much.
My pleasure. Thank you. I really appreciate it too.
All right, so thank you guys so much, and have a great day.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to give a review and rate Spoiler Force Podcast. If you want to get all Spoiler Force updates or even peeks at behind the scenes, you can join the Spoiler Force Discord community. And if you'd like to show support, give tips, recommendations, sponsorships, or any collaborations, you can email me at rickyvang92@gmail.com.